If he could just admit the truth, then all four of us might have a chance. Liar. I'm not a liar. No, I'm many things, but not that. She regretted it, of course, but she said it.
Even though Downton Abbey, the grand finale, just hit screens, the idea of going back to the world of Downton isn't completely off the table. Julian Fellowes, the creator behind the series, has made it pretty clear that he's learned never to say never, and that definitely leaves the door cracked open for something more. His recent comments came right after the third film wrapped up, and fans can't help but wonder if a fourth movie or maybe even a spin-off is still possible. The third movie, set in the 1930s, focused on the 7th Earl of Grantham, Robert Crawley, played by Hugh Bonneville, as he starts to think about passing the estate down to Lady Mary, played by Michelle Dockery. But Mary's recent divorce from Henry Talbot, played by Matthew Goode, complicates everything. The family's finances are shaky, which means the estate could be sold and Downton might no longer be their home. This setup left a bunch of questions open at the end of the film, which makes the idea of a fourth story feel pretty natural because there's still room to explore how the Crawleys handle these challenges. Fellowes, now 76, was asked about prequels or spin-offs that could focus on the next generation, even though the Crawley story felt mostly wrapped up. And while he didn't give a concrete yes, he didn't shut the idea down either. That's a possibility. I've learned never to say never anymore because you have to take it back, he told Entertainment Weekly. So it's clear he's open to revisiting the universe even if it has to be done carefully. He added that if they were to return to Downton, it would likely need to be set in a different period of history so the family could face new problems because the stakes would have to feel fresh and different. On that basis, I don't see why not, but we'll have to see what happens, Fellowes said. That kind of comment keeps fans hopeful, especially since the third movie, while marketed as the grand finale, left a few plot threads unresolved. Producer Gareth Neame hinted at a similar idea during the third film's premiere. He said the movie would give fans a proper send-off for the main characters, but he also made it clear that wasn't necessarily the end of Downton Abbey. The camera will pull away and we'll have our last moment with those characters, he said, but that's not necessarily the end for Downton Abbey. So even though it feels like a conclusion, the story world itself could continue in some form, whether that's a fourth movie, a spin-off, or a story about the next generation. The original TV series ran for 6 seasons from 2010 to 2015, ending in 1925. The first movie then picked up a couple of years later in 1927, and the latest film jumps us further into the 1930s. Even with that timeline, there's still room for stories to grow, especially with the younger characters or with side stories that haven't been fully explored yet. Fellowes is now working on HBO's The Gilded Age, but he seems to remain connected to Downton and aware of how much fans love the series. When asked about crossovers or spin-offs, he just shrugged with a simple "we'll see," leaving fans to imagine the possibilities. Although some critics, like Clarice Lowry from The Independent, gave the grand finale a lukewarm review, calling it proof the franchise must end, Fellowes has always been clear that these films are for the fans, not the critics. He even said he could predict the reviews in advance and wasn't trying to win over new viewers. Instead, he was aware that this was a goodbye of sorts, a way to give longtime fans one last moment with these beloved characters. And that approach actually leaves room for optimism about a fourth movie because there's still energy and love surrounding the world of Downton. The ending of the grand finale itself manages to balance closure with nostalgia. Mary ends up officially installed as the new mistress of Downton, standing alone in the main hall while the rest of the family moves on. That could feel a little lonely for her character, but the movie also gives us the joy of seeing dearly departed characters like Matthew, Sybil, and Violet again, dancing and celebrating in a lively room. Even though they're no longer part of the ongoing story in real life, their presence in these final scenes reminds us why the series was so beloved. It honors the past while leaving the door open for the future, which feels like a perfect bridge to a potential next chapter. Because of this mix of ending and tribute, there are plenty of threads that could be explored if a fourth movie happens. Mary is now the head of Downton, but there's still the question of how she will manage the estate, especially with lingering financial troubles. Henry Talbot's absence also leaves room for exploring Mary's personal life. Maybe she finds love again, or maybe she struggles with balancing family duties and independence. Then there's the next generation. Even though prequels or spin-offs focusing on the Crawley children might not be necessary, they could provide a fresh perspective on Downton while still tying into the characters we know and love. The grand finale really leans into the idea of continuity and memory. By showing past characters and including nostalgic callbacks, Fellowes and director Simon Curtis gave fans a moment to reflect on the series as a whole. It's not just about ending a story, it's about celebrating the journey. This sentiment makes a fourth movie feel not only possible, but also kind of natural, because there's already a foundation of character history, unresolved tensions, and new challenges waiting to be addressed. Even with the title Grand Finale, the movie doesn't feel like a strict cutoff. It feels more like a pause, a breath, and an acknowledgement that the Crawley story could continue in some form. And the fact that Fellowes is open to revisiting the series in a new historical period is encouraging. That means even if a fourth movie were to happen, it wouldn't feel like repeating the same story. It could explore fresh issues, different social pressures, or new personal challenges for the characters. Fans also have plenty to look forward to because the third movie left some intriguing loose ends. The estate's future is uncertain. Mary is adjusting to her new role, and there's the possibility of romantic and family developments to explore. These kinds of open plot points are exactly what a fourth movie could dive into, giving both closure and excitement at the same time. There's even room to bring back some fan-favorite characters or introduce new ones who shake up the family dynamics, which could create a whole new layer of drama and heartwarming moments. The beauty of Downton Abbey has always been in its attention to character growth, social changes, and family dynamics. A fourth movie could continue that tradition, especially because there's a lot happening behind the scenes in the 1930s that hasn't been fully addressed yet. Economic changes, societal shifts, and the looming threats of a changing Europe all provide fertile ground for storytelling. Even though the main family story feels mostly wrapped, these historical and social contexts could allow for fresh plots while still keeping the heart of Downton intact. In a way, the grand finale sets up a perfect stage for a fourth movie without demanding it. It gives fans closure, nostalgia, and emotional satisfaction while leaving enough questions unanswered to spark curiosity. Mary's stewardship of the estate, the family's financial uncertainties, and potential new love interests or rivalries all present narrative opportunities that a new movie could explore. Fellowes has already hinted that he wouldn't dismiss returning outright, so the possibility is alive as long as there's a story worth telling. Ultimately, what makes a fourth movie so promising is that the series has always thrived on balance. Balancing past and present, tradition and change, family and society. If a new story comes along, it could lean into these themes again, perhaps with the next generation stepping up, or with Mary facing challenges that test her in ways she hasn't been tested before. And with Fellowes' guidance, the tone could remain true to the series while exploring new territory, keeping the magic of Downton Abbey alive for fans old and new. Even though the grand finale might seem like the end at first glance, the ending itself feels like a springboard. It honors the past but hints at the future, and that's exactly the kind of setup a fourth movie could use. There's room for heart, drama, humor, and historical intrigue, and because the world of Downton Abbey is so rich, it doesn't need to reinvent itself to feel relevant, it just needs to explore these existing threads a little further. So while there's no official confirmation yet, all signs point to a positive outlook for fans hoping for more. Between Fellowes keeping the door open, unresolved plot lines, and the richness of the world itself, a fourth movie doesn't just feel possible, it feels like it could be something really special. And with the right mix of nostalgia, fresh challenges, and beloved characters, it could be the perfect way to keep the Downton Abbey story alive for another chapter. And that's that for today's video. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.